On this video, we talk about strategies for how to love yourself more. Stay tuned. Welcome to the New Love Addiction. I'm Alan Robarge, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Let's talk about self-love. What exactly does that mean? And then also explore some strategies for cultivating more self-love in our life. When we talk about self-love, we're asking the question, what kind of relationship do you have with yourself? If we think in terms of relating, we are relating to everything around us. This includes inanimate objects, this includes experiences, this of course includes people. But we can think about, we have a relationship to food, we have a relationship to our place of employment, we have a relationship to television, we have a relationship to pets and animals. And of course, with people, we have a whole range of different kinds of relationships we have with people. So the same applies to ourself. We have a relationship to ourself. How am I relating? What is the quality of the relationship that I have with myself? Am I kind? Am I gentle? Am I compassionate? Am I hard on myself? Am I critical? Am I punitive? Am I giving myself a hard time? So to ask the question, do I love myself, is simultaneously inviting, how am I relating to myself? And in this sense, relating is not an idea, it's a discipline, it's an act, it's something that I do. Very, very specifically, kindness and compassion and gentleness. These are not just random ideas or feel-good sensations, that I feel warm and affectionate towards myself. It's an actual practice of how can I operate in a place, how can I choose to treat myself in a way that offers some accommodation, that offers some encouragement, that offers some affirmation. And this is not just a one-time thought. This is not just a one-time feeling of warmth and appreciation. This is an ongoing practice. And if I am able to do this on a regular basis, then that is cultivating, that is strengthening, that is improving the quality of the relationship that I have with myself. I like to think of it in terms of gardening. If I have a garden, I must put my hands in the dirt, I must weed the garden, I must take out the weeds that are not supposed to be there. And then I also prepare the garden for the seeds. I need to do the work, I need to till the ground, I need to plant the seeds, and I need to allow the sunshine and the water to do what they need to do in order to help the garden grow. And in this sense, in this analogy, what we're talking about, the garden that's growing is we're planting the seeds of kindness, we're planting the seeds of gentleness, we're planting the seeds of compassion. Now, it's very easy to take an opposite approach and to think about, how are you hard on yourself? Many times, very easily, when I ask people, are you hard on yourself? Are you critical? Many people very quickly can say yes. They know that the thoughts, the quality of their thoughts, have a critical nature, give themselves a hard time, might even be a lot of aggression and anger, directed at yourself. All of these things are cultivating a volatile relationship with yourself. They are cultivating an antagonistic relationship with yourself. If you practice relating yourself with a kind of extreme guilt trip, in a way that you are monitoring how you're showing up in this world, then you are essentially planting the seeds of doing more of the same. So if you're critical and nasty and calling yourself names, or you just genuinely feel like you're you're judging who you are as a person, then you're planting the seeds that you're going to judge yourself as a person tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that. So this becomes a very conscious practice. The same way gardening is, you need to get up in the morning, you need to get yourself in the garden, you need to put your hands in the dirt. The same is true of monitoring your mind and monitoring your thoughts and monitoring these critical thoughts. To be able to look at, how can you soften here? How can you give yourself the benefit of the doubt? How can you be a little more encouraging? One way I like to do this, to think about a small child, think of age 5, age 6, a child who's trying to learn to ride the bicycle. If the child falls off, you don't tell the child, what an idiot she is for falling off. If the child falls off the bicycle, you don't let the child know that she's failing to learn how to ride the bicycle and that, she's really falling short as a 6-year-old. You're not providing encouragement. You're not providing positive reinforcement. Well, the same thing goes true for yourself. If you can look at how you would never talk to a child that way, you could also begin to observe how you do not need to continue to be critical of yourself. And in fact, you can soften your tone. You can experiment with being a little more encouraging. Now, I want to talk about a confusion that comes with this idea around self-love, that there seems to be a particular belief that is somewhat popular that thinks of self-love as this very core foundational place, that if we do not have self-love, then we would be unable to be in relationship with other people, and that in fact self-love, self-appreciation is the end-all be-all, self-worth is the end-all be-all of how to orient in this world. And until you love yourself, then you're pretty much doomed and you're not going to be able to be in relationship. This is a problematic way of thinking because it limits and reinforces this idea of complete autonomy, a complete individuality, and it denies the fact that we are interconnected to everything around us and that we do need nourishment from outside sources. We know who we are when others mirror back to us our own self. When someone smiles at me because I made a joke, when someone smiles at me or offers some appreciation because I did something nice, they are affirming that I'm a nice person. And they are affirming that they appreciate me. And this is a form of nourishment. In that moment, it could be rather fleeting or rather inconsequential. For example, I go to a coffee shop and it just happens to be the person, the barista that I'm seeing in that moment, and we laugh, a joke is made, and then we're laughing together, and I can tell that the barista appreciates me. I let this in. This feels good. I cannot manufacture this on my own. I need other people in this world. I need those types of experiences. And that experience of being at a coffee shop with the barista, that's a very minor or rather simplistic exchange. Of course, if we think about in terms of being with a partner or being with family members, we need nourishment and encouragement and affirmation and support. We cannot manufacture this solely on our own. So this idea that self-love is somehow the beginning of this hierarchy, that it's this foundational piece and that without it you can't function in this world, I challenge that and say that we need both. We need both because think of back to the garden, the analogy of the garden. I cannot be responsible for creating the water. I cannot be responsible for creating the sunshine. I need to rely on being connected to these other resources around me, to being connected to this nourishment around me. So when I look at what is self-love, when I look at what is my relationship to myself and how am I treating myself, it also means identifying how do I receive nourishment from others around me? And am I able to let in that nourishment that is going to also simultaneously reinforce how I too am treating myself with kindness and with compassion and with gentleness? Now, let's talk about a couple strategies, some concrete ways of how to work with this and what this might look like. I like the phrase, is this an act of self-loving? And if you think in terms of your behaviors, if you think in terms of getting yourself in some kind of dilemma where you have to make a choice, if you think of terms of how you talk to yourself, your inner self-speak, we could also introduce and bring in the idea of shame. If we are a shame-based person, if we very easily have ways of cultivating toxic shame in our life, and in this sense, toxic shame means that you fundamentally believe there is something wrong with you as a human being and that you are flawed at your core and that you do not deserve love, you are not good enough, you do not matter as a human being. That whole belief, that kind of way of thinking and being in the world is what it means to have toxic shame informing your relationship to yourself. So a shame-based person will very easily, very quickly get sucked into this shame-based thinking and continue to plant the seeds, back to this garden analogy, continue to plant the seeds of more shame. We can interrupt that process by asking ourselves the question, is this an act of self-loving? And we can apply it to any situation. If you're in a dilemma about how you're treating yourself, let's say it's something as very simple but confusing. You're with a group of people and everyone's deciding on what are we doing next. Are we going to the movie first or are we having dinner? And you might feel challenged to have a voice, to speak up, and to acknowledge that your blood sugar is low, you're very hungry, and just having popcorn is not going to help you. You need to eat first. And if you're the type of person who struggles to speak up, then you're not taking care of yourself. It would be an act of self-loving for you to be able to say, I need to eat something first. You can go to the movie theater if you like. Someone can join me here now. However, I need to pick up something to eat before we go into the movie because my health depends on it. I need to take care of myself. I need to practice this act of self-loving. Now, there are other examples that might be a bit more high stakes. For example, someone who's struggling with an addiction. Many people continue to stay stuck in addictive behaviors and pursue addictions that are harmful and hurtful to themselves. And one way to counter that process is to say, well, if I follow through playing out the cycle of this habitual pattern of an addiction or of this addiction of doing whatever it is that I'm getting ready to do, am I reinforcing, am I offering myself some self-kindness here? Is this behavior an act of self-loving? One more example that we could use has to do with relationships. And again, it's similar to the example I gave of speaking up regarding eating in the movie theater. But if you're with a partner, if you're dating someone, and you need to ask yourself, is this an act of self-loving for me to stay quiet in this relationship and not speak up about, could be any number of things, what your needs are, how you would like to be treated. And if you find yourself not having a voice, each time you don't have a voice, each time that you stay silent, you're betraying yourself, you're betraying your needs, and you're not cultivating self-love. You're not strengthening a relationship with yourself. So this phrase, is this an act of self-loving? When I have practiced this before in the past, when I use this phrase, if the answer is no, if I ask myself the question, I say, is this an act of self-loving? And I'm usually not confused about it. It's rather clear. Either I am treating myself, I am in integrity, I am upholding my morals, I am upholding my value system, I am coming from a place of accommodation and kindness and gentleness towards myself. I will be able to answer the question rather easily, is this an act of self-loving? And I can say yes or no. If I say no, then that's my answer. Then that gives me the instant feedback to let me know what I need to do. And if I don't do it, then I know I'm planting the seeds of shame. I'm planting the seeds of betrayal, self-betrayal. I'm planting the seeds of giving myself a hard time, of being critical, of ignoring myself. I'm planting the seeds of not valuing my own worth. And what I connect to is how painful it is to feel the shame that I don't have any worth. And when I do this, I know the answer is no, that this is not an act of self-loving if I continue on to think those particular thoughts or behave in that certain way. And I know that I then am inviting more suffering, more shame, more criticalness towards myself. That in and of itself creates the clarity I need to shift gears and to make the choices where I am choosing myself. I am choosing to be kind to myself. I am choosing to plant the seeds of gentleness and compassion. Another strategy, another way to think about this has to do with boundaries. And very specifically, boundaries oftentimes get reduced down to the word no. If I have a boundary, I'm saying, no, don't treat me like this. No, don't cross this line. No, I don't want to participate or interact this way. You can also incorporate the word yes. That boundaries include inviting how I want to be treated. So it's not only having a boundary to shut out the bad behaviors or someone being hurtful or someone crossing a boundary and saying, no, don't cross that boundary. It also, in the spirit of positive reinforcement, in the spirit of positive affirmation, boundaries include saying, yes, this is how I want to be treated. Now, if you are struggling with a relationship to yourself, and if you struggle at times having some toxic shame and relating to yourself from a shame-based place, to practice healthy boundaries sometimes can feel like you're being deprived. So, for example, let's say you're in a relationship with a partner who's emotionally avoidant, emotionally unavailable, emotionally withdrawn, and who is not generous towards you. And you know that it is not good for you to be with someone who is so emotionally stingy, shut down, and has a wall around him or herself, and is not inviting you in, is not opening the doors and the windows in that wall, but essentially is practicing shutting you out. And this is very painful. So if you're going to practice healthy boundaries, and if you say, no, I do not want to be treated like this, sometimes it is hard to uphold that boundary because in that moment we perceive that we are being deprived. So even though I know it's healthy to say, no, I don't want to be treated like this, no, I don't want to be shut out, no, I don't want my partner to be emotionally withdrawn, however, we lose sight of the fact that we are going to actually gain or benefit through saying no, and instead of seeing the benefit of the boundary, we over-identify with feeling deprived. So that's why we can employ this phrase, in no is yes. And I'm just going to repeat it. In no is yes. So by saying no now to this unhealthy exchange of being shut out, I am saying yes to welcoming people into my life who value me and want to share with me on an emotional level. Another example would be, if we're looking at this in terms of addictive behavior, to say by saying no in this moment to, I'm not going to go out with my friends tonight and engage in the habitual cycle of going, through a process of drinking too much. And then I might feel deprived because, well, I'm not going to be able to see my friends, and I want to go out, but I'm not going to be able to go out if I say no. So if I employ the phrase by saying no to this cycle of addiction tonight, I'm saying yes to getting up in the morning and going for a walk in the park and feeling good in my body. I get to focus on what I'm actually getting as opposed to focusing on what is being denied me. If I only focus on what is being denied, then I feel deprived. And it becomes a little more challenging to uphold the boundary if I'm overly identified with what's being deprived. The phrase in no and yes, in no is the word yes. We can find the yes. I'm able to take care of myself. I'm saying yes to taking care of myself when I say no and have boundaries of being treated in ways that I don't want to be treated, or by not pursuing certain behaviors that I know are harmful to me. So to repeat, we are talking about your relationship to yourself and how do you treat yourself with kindness. We are acknowledging that you need both input and nourishment from other people, as well as to cultivate simultaneously some self-compassion and your relationship to your own sense of self. And then also to look at some very specific strategies that you can use. Has to do with, is this an act of self-loving? Ask yourself that question. And also to look at the yes, or look for the positive payoff of when you are asserting a boundary. And then also to repeat, the boundaries themselves are ways of reinforcing your relationship to yourself, or boundaries strengthen your relationship to yourself. I hope that this video was helpful. If you liked the video, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, if you want to join a Facebook group with other people who are sharing and exploring ideas such as this one, please do. There is a Facebook group called The New Love Addiction. And then lastly, if you want to learn more about me, you can by going to my website, which is alanrobarge.com. I appreciate that you watched the video. Thank you so much. There's more to come, and I will see you soon. Bye.